And welcome to another edition of Try Knoxville. Mike Roberts along for the ride. And I got to tell you something right now as we get ready to do things up. Our guest today is going to be City Manager Heather Ussery. And we want to make sure we reach out and thank our sponsors right now, Design Metal Art being one of them. And then also Midwest Event Promotions coming up with their gun show here in a little bit. But as promised, and we'll get right to it, City Manager Heather Ussery. And first of all, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know it's... a lot of people don't appreciate administration work like I do because I've seen it from behind the scenes. But let's talk about, I guess, where I want to go with this before we start talking the detail of it. The last time we spoke on this show, you were an interim city manager. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. Oh, let me turn a microphone on here. Let's try that. There we go.
Yes, I do remember that. Seems like forever ago. Time flies, but yes, I do remember that. I was a lot more nervous, I think, to come in at that moment. But.
Well, you've been in front of several microphones since then, several interviews, and a lot of things going on with the city of Knoxville. Last week we had Brian Hatch on, the mayor of Knoxville. We talked about housing a lot because that's been a huge development here in the last several years with Knoxville, Iowa. I want to talk about infrastructure first because if anybody that drives through downtown Knoxville, it is a maze right now. And a lot of it was planned. We did have some stuff down on Main Street and on Robinson Street, that I think ended up being a private problem. So let's talk about the first section, being in front of Iowa Realty, in front of Dr. Fermanik's office, because that's been going on the longest. And that's part of an infrastructure. Do we still call it streetscape, or what do we call it?
We do, yes.
Okay.
So we have our annual streets projects, and then these ones we call streetscape because that is full infrastructure. They're going down about 20 feet, replacing storm, sanitary, water, all of those service lines and the main line.
When they got into the first part there on Main Street, and again in front of Iowa Realty and everything, that has been an interesting dig, if you will, because last year they did some stuff over at Wells Fargo that they ran into problems with. Now Streetscape's here and doing their thing, and have they ran into problems or delays there as well? Because it seems like this is taking forever.
Yeah. So, when Wells Fargo, it was just a few years ago, they had their private repair that had to come out into our main. So that's why it was such a large project there. And then with our project currently moving, we're doing a lot of coordination with utilities, and one of those was Windstream. They had a large duct bank that was located at that intersection of First and Main that was damaged as part of this project, and water got into it as well. And so it took a significant amount of time to be able to repair that. A duct bank, I don't know much about fiber, but seems like a pretty large deal. And so that took them significant amount of time to make those repairs in order to be able to get our contractors back in there to finish their work.
Now, we always go back to this call before you dig, if you will. And I've seen projects where accidents happen, I get it. But this duct bank we're talking about, was this a not known thing, or what happened there?
It was known that it was there. There were some issues in terms of stabilizing it while it was exposed, and then there was some water that came into the lines and ultimately damaged them. So it was known it was there. Actually, overall, while this has taken longer, overall it's going to end up better results. We had to change the sizing of our infrastructure to go around this duct bank because it was so large and a heavy lift to be able to move it. It's unfortunate that it was damaged and that it's taking longer, but now we're able to continue with the size of infrastructure that's ultimately needed for the project. And overall, then it'll be a final project that is better than it was before.
That might be our word of the day is duct bank. I don't think I've ever heard that before, so that's
I'm
something
still
new.
learning too.
Yeah, something new as well. So that project itself in that particular section back underway under your contractors.
Correct.
Things are going forward. What are we looking at for timeline on that, do we think?
Yes, so we are hopeful today or tomorrow that we're seeing paving. So they will go with the main street will be paved with a paver. So that will be 4 hours and that will be done. But then the bump outs, the parking areas, the curb and sidewalks, that will be hand poured. So that will be a few more weeks of framing that up and pouring those. But we're hopeful end of September. Well, gosh, that's next week.
Next week, yeah.
First few weeks in October, it all should be finalized as long as the weather stays and we're able to keep moving.
This fall's going fast, as you just mentioned, and end of the week of next week is September 28th or whatever the heck it is. move down a block, go down to 3rd Street onto 5th Street, I think it is, or 6th maybe. 5th Street? Yeah, 5th
Third to
Street.
Fifth, yep.
Yeah. That's another section of streetscape also?
Third to Fourth is streetscape. Fourth
Okay.
to Fifth is just a street repair.
Okay, so 3rd to 4th is the same thing. We're going 20 feet down, we're doing it all. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Timeline on that. I don't think they've ran into any problems. That actually started on time, if I remember correctly, and is still progressing on time. What is the hope end date for that?
Yep. So the contract end date for this phase is December 2nd.
Okay.
Yep. So then they're moving along great. We've coordinated, our engineers coordinated with Kleins on their repair, or their, they were moving their
Tanks?
tanks, yes. Sorry. And we coordinated with them. It ultimately ended up really well with the coordination of those projects and the heavy machinery that they had to bring in, that we didn't have a road right there because it probably would have damaged the road in some way. So
Sure.
coordination worked really well, and they're continuing to move forward. And so as of right now, December 2nd is the contract end date.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate now. Why are we doing so much at once in downtown Knoxville? I've seen that all over social media. What were we thinking? Everything else. Is it a contractor thing or what is it?
Overall, we decided, we had a certain portion that we were going to do, and then we added first to second because Main Street was already going to be torn up. There was already going to be a detour to go around Main, and so we thought ultimately do it now rather than tearing it up again in a year and closing Main Street down again. Because even though those phases, if first to second wasn't closed now, they're still affected in some way by a detour. People are going to go around the square, and so we thought, get it all done now
Right.
while there's already a detour there, and being able to take care of that, as well as we're receiving funding through STBG funds, about $1 million for this project, and that's only available for certain roads through town. Main is one of them. So that funding is available currently, and we wanted to take advantage of that.
Is that one of those fundings, if we don't do it this year or whatever, we don't get to do it?
We can hold on to it,
Okay.
but ultimately the savings of we have the one contractor
Right.
there doing the project now, there's savings there.
Well, absolutely, because building a home, building anything, repairing anything, picking up something at the lumberyard, if you wait till next year, it's going to be higher.
Yes.
All right, same thing with city stuff.
Yep. We did, last time we did Streetscape, 2013,
Right.
we did all 4 sides of the square. It was about $3 million. Current estimates are about $1 million a block now. So it's increased significantly for Streetscape
Right.
specifically. So
Well, yeah, and again, that's the whole infrastructure, that's everything, but
Yeah.
still, that's a lot of increase since we did that
about 10 years ago.
10 years ago. So private-wise, and again, people are defining this a little bit different. I've seen on social media. I know there was one down on Main Street, further down towards 7th Street or past 7th Street earlier this year. You've got a situation now, I think it's over on 4th Street and Robinson, or right in that area where was another private sewer there as well.
Yep.
That's city, but it's not city. It's not your plan. Some private people have to take care of it. Whether it was broken or whether it wasn't, it does look like the city has something to do with it. And it is. I just want to explain to the people it's not.
Yeah.
Private sewers break.
Yep.
All right, it happens, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's just one of those Mother Natures and trees and everything else that happens. Do you ever get frustrated? I wasn't going down this road, but I mentioned trees. Growing up in this town, you did too. We had a beautiful, beautiful boulevards. We have beautiful scenery. We have the trees and everything else. But wow, are those trees a pain in the butt when it comes to infrastructure?
They are, yes. They definitely are trees in the right of way. While you think of Montgomery and Robinson, when you drive down the beautiful canopy that we do have, placing those large trees in the right of way can cause a lot of harm to our infrastructure.
I'm sure 100 years ago they thought it was a great idea, and now these big trees are starting to become a pain in the butt. And
Yeah.
again, I love trees. Don't come down on me for this deal at all. I know it, but you got to kind of be thinking this out in the long run. Is it going to really damage things? Should we put them in the backyard or whatever it is? But it's just one of those things that we have to face and deal with. Any other infrastructure going on? Any other paving jobs? Any other overlays or anything coming up? Are we done for the year once this is done?
Yeah, we're just going
Knock
to get
on
through
wood.
Streetscape right now.
Yeah, knock on wood. Is there more streetscape in the future? Is Robinson Street between 3rd and 4th going to be a
Yes,
one that's done too?
eventually. As part of this overall contract, Robinson Street from 4th to 7th is included in the contract that will be repaired next April.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure for our city projects that both the main thoroughfares through our downtown were not closed at the same time. And so that's why we're doing it next year and not as part of right now when they have that tore up. So it will be in April. Just at our last council meeting, we discussed with council to extend that from 3rd to 4th. To do that, that's a mill and overlay. It currently is a mill and overlay, and we asked if we could extend that while the contractor is there. That road is in rough shape, and then after 4th to 7th, 3rd to 4th would be the only block on Robinson that hasn't been repaired in over the last 10 years. We try to give our downtown business owners a break. Streetscape, I know, is a big deal for them in terms of the access to their buildings, and so it's significant. We don't want to then turn around and do it year after year, and so there will be a time frame now from this project till we do it again. But there are some other blocks, Robinson 3rd to 4th, that will eventually be streetscape, but we're currently going to do a mill and overlay to be able to make that in better condition than it is now for next year. And so that mill and overlay, that just the mill and overlay itself is just a few days, so it's completely different than a streetscape that's several months, all of that infrastructure. That should just be a few days that's closed.
You mentioned some of the money that's available. Is there more money available in the future? Is this something you have to apply for all the time, or how's that work out?
The city receives a portion of funds through SERPA, Central, oh gosh, that acronym I might not be able to rattle off, but it's 4 streets that it's part of the state of Iowa, and we receive funds annually through that. And so we try and build up those funds. Then we're able to do something like with the streetscape project, a significant portion of that that is paid for through those funds.
So when people get on Facebook or social media of any kind, they say, oh, my taxes are going up because we're fixing these streets. Not necessarily the case.
Not necessarily the case, no. And then we try so our annual streets projects, we issue a bond of $1.5 million every other year. And the reason we do it in those stages is because we try to keep the debt service levy stagnant. We don't like to see the large intervals up and down, because that's when it feels nice when they go down, but not when they go back up. So keeping that steady and continuing those projects is ultimately, we feel, is the better option financially to be able for our residents. And so 1.5 every other year, but we split that in each year to do a street improvement project. And so, it doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going up just because we're doing streets projects. There's also other funding mechanisms that can go into that rather than just property taxes paying for that.
And since you brought up the word bond, we're going to take a little break and talk about our sponsors here, and we'll come back and talk about bonds because we have a big project coming up in the city of Knoxville. But first, we do Midwest event promotions. These guys have got a hold of me here a couple weeks ago. We partnered up with these great people, and we have a gun show coming up on October the 11th through the 13th. It is from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday night. Saturday is 9 to 5, and Sunday is 9 to 3. Now, here's the cool thing about it. It's $8 for admission, free parking. That $8 is good for the whole weekend. They'll give you a wristband. You come back in on Saturday, no more money. You come back in on Sunday, no more money. As long as you have that wristband on that you paid the $8 for on Friday. So make sure you take advantage of that. They're going to be buying, selling, and also do background checks, and they'll even do some trades as well. But just want to put that out there as well. Also mention the fact that our military veterans and first responders with ID will get a discount on entering this event. Again, that is October 11th through the 13th. Again, our guest today, Heather Ussery, City Manager here at Knoxville. This has been a big topic. I think part of the problem, and I'll call it a problem for right now, is the fact of how long it has taken to get to this point. I mentioned it to Mayor Hatch last week. Land deals don't happen overnight. This building project doesn't happen overnight. This was talked about 15 years ago. With that being said, the city of Knoxville is moving forward now on a public safety building. You guys have acquired the land now. The deed is yours. The biggest thing that's been coming up, and you put out an article on this here a few weeks ago, about how we're going to pay for it. Local option sales tax is going to pay for this building. What I want to get into, though, is the whole grassroots of this thing, starting with this public safety building. What is a public safety building for those that don't know what it is?
For us, public safety, it will be fire, rescue, and police.
All in one house?
All in one house, as well as City Hall. But the public safety portion is them, yes.
Yeah, and the land we're talking about is across from Kenlock Stadium. Used to be known as the middle school. In my era, it was the high school. That's how old I am. But that whole area right there is where you guys are planning on doing that. When I say whole area, I know the intersection of Pleasant and Lincoln, they're going to do Quick Star. That's coming in.
Yes.
But basically, kind of footprint of the old high school, middle school is where the public safety is going to be. Now, from the fire side of it, where are the trucks coming out of? South, west, north? Where are they coming out?
They will come out close to Marion Street, as far away from the intersection of Robinson and 14 as possible.
Okay. All right. So right, kind of middle to north just a little bit then. Okay. Because that's the ones that run most of the time. Anybody that's paying attention to sirens here in town, their call volume is unbelievable. I don't know how those guys do it. It's just crazy. And the lifestyle that they've had for the last several years now of jamming into the current location they are right now, they've needed to, I guess, explore new options is a good word. So this public safety building comes forward. Police department also going down there too. And I should mention, this is one story, correct?
Correct.
So that's a big help too, because right now you've got an elevator that sometimes works. Been trapped in that elevator myself.
Yep, same.
Okay. You got staircase to get to City Hall. You got staircase to get to police department.
Yeah.
This is all going to be big time ADA compliant. I mean, you're ADA compliant now, but again, we have an elevator that's 1942.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to the building itself. Have you went out for bids on this thing yet?
No.
Okay. Do we have an estimation of what we think it's going to cost?
Yes, so we are still in schematic design, so we have not gotten to the point of preparing construction documents. So when I say that, it's caveating, there's still significant contingency in there because we just aren't there yet in the design phase to be able to pull those contingencies down a little bit, the percentage. So right now, we're estimating between 13 and 14 million.
Okay. That's a lot of money. Local option sales tax, I know what it's about, and we'll slice it up here in a little bit as far as that. But that doesn't come in that kind of money in 1 year.
No.
So this is going to be a bonded building paid for by local option sales tax.
Correct.
Definition of bond, layman's term, it's a loan.
Yes.
Okay? It's a loan that goes through the city governments. You guys have a capacity, just like a credit rating. You can only borrow so much money. I can only borrow so much money from the bank to operate my businesses.
Correct.
You guys can only operate so much money or borrow so much money to operate as a city. You just mentioned every other year you guys bond at $1.5 million to streets.
Yes.
Okay. What is our bonding capacity? I mean, what's the top dollar we can use?
Yep. So it's called a constitutional debt limit, and how that is figured, it is 5% of the taxable valuation of your community within a given year. So that's your fiscal year's constitutional debt limit then.
Okay.
For Knoxville, ours is currently for fiscal year 25, 26.8 million.
Okay.
We could bond up to that. Currently, we are at 34, we are utilizing 34% of that. So about 8 million that we are currently utilizing of that. Once we issue these bonds, we will be about 82%.
Okay.
And Knoxville, we do pay down our debt very quickly. And so while we'll be at 82%, we've been higher than that for years in the past for some of those projects that we've issued bonds for. But within a matter of 5 years, we'll be back down to about 50% of utilization.
These bonds that you're talking about, these mini loans, I'll call them, every other year the 1.5. What else is bonded in Knoxville right now?
So we
putting you on the
haven't,
spot,
yeah,
sorry.
besides our streetscape bonds, we haven't issued bonds since before 2020. So the library, that was one that we issued bonds for. We've had sewer infrastructure that we've issued bonds for, the SRF loans. But really the main one that is on there besides our streets projects are the library.
Okay.
Yeah.
These bonds in the past have been used for developments as well. I think Fairway Development out in the area was bonded at one time, I think. I may be wrong on that.
If so, that's retired since before I've been there.
Right,
But
right.
I mean, we've done TIF as well.
Sure.
So that's another tool for development. But yeah, there's it's usually done for infrastructure for cities or buildings.
Okay. Going to put you on the spot again, only because that's what I'm here for, I guess, today. Local option sales tax did the streetscape originally. It had a sunset. You had to have it spent, you had to have it used, you had to have whatever it is. You can't do it no more after this particular year. How does local option sales tax develop in this public safety building? Because this is a big loan.
Yeah. So 2013 was our last time we did a streetscape bond, and it was funded through local option sales tax. At that time, local option sales tax had sunsets of 10 years. So ours would have sunset in 2023. In 2021, we did a ballot renewal for local option sales tax in the community, and it passed, I believe, by about 76 to 80%. So it was pretty high. And as part of that, the law had changed between 2013 and 2023. You no longer have to have a sunset for local option sales tax. So we put ours on the ballot with no sunset. And then you also have to have language of what you're going to be spending those dollars on for local option sales tax. So we added the Public Safety City Hall building into that ballot language. And so that's how we're able to utilize local option sales tax moving forward. It'll be a 20-year bond that we do for the public safety building. But since there's no longer a sunset, we're able to continue local option sales tax until it would be reversed, then it will continue.
Local option sales tax, when you say it's paying for this bond, it is paying the whole loan.
Correct.
Let's explain the local option sales tax to those that may or may not understand it. With this particular incidence, I think it's a penny. Is that right for the city?
Yep.
Okay. So every time you pay sales tax on something, 1 penny of this, which doesn't sound like much, but it adds up. It adds up quickly. Will go towards paying off these bonds that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That isn't just Mike Roberts going to the store and buying stuff.
Yeah. And it's 1%, not
1%.
1 cent.
I'm
but
sorry.
yeah,
1%. My bad. It's not just me going to the store and buying stuff. It's not just you going to the store and buying stuff. Everybody that comes into town for the Nationals who spends money here at hotels, at Walmart, at grocery stores that aren't food related, that spend on sales tax, they're paying for our building.
Yes, it's all goods and services through, it's actually Marion County, and then there's a formula at the state level that divvies up the cities, the portions that we receive. But yeah, so when people are spending money in Pella, when they're spending money, in other communities in Marion County, as well as Knoxville, and our visitors, anyone that comes in and spending funds here in Marion County, that is helping pay for our building.
That's a good plan. That's a plan that we couldn't use 15 years ago.
Yeah, and that's, while we've talked about it and seen the need for many, many years, that's what has ultimately changed and been able to allow us to continue to move forward with actually designing this building and moving forward with where is it going to go. These are next steps that we hadn't been able to get to before, and it's because the big question mark was, how are we going to fund this? We never wanted it, in all the conversations I've been in over the years, we never wanted to put this on our community and tax them for this building. We knew there's a lot of other projects that are needed that we could utilize that our community, while our community utilizes this building in a way, they're not stepping foot in it every day. That, our public safety is a significant portion of our community, and everybody sees that and the importance of that, but they're not stepping footing in that building. So how do we fund that that's not a burden on our taxpayers? And the change was local option sales tax.
It goes back to the same old, same old. 911's not important until you need it.
Yeah.
This public safety building is just a building that we're going to be driving by every day. We have no use for it unless we need it. That's where you're going to apply for your plans for your P&Z stuff to building a house or remodeling your own house or pouring a driveway or whatever it is. Just like City Hall. It's called a public safety building, but it's just City Hall with everybody in the house, if you will. Timeline on this. I know this, again, we talked about this earlier. You've acquired the land now. Okay, this was done. Is this a land swap? Is that fair to say, or is this the intention of it is to be a land swap with the school?
Yes, the intention is we've closed, on our portion, but the conversations and eventually what will happen is for the school to have 10 acres within the Veterans District for future development, how they see fit.
All right, so the land swap happens. You guys have the deed now to your property at the corner of Robinson and Lincoln. Timeline as far as going out to bid?
So we've also applied earlier this year for the Miller Meeks appropriations for community project fund for $2.7 million towards this building.
Okay.
And so we cannot move forward until we are aware that is moving forward, or we would become ineligible if we start the project or go out for bid. And so that 2.7 means less that we would have to issue in bonds. And so that would be huge for us, 2.7 towards that project. So we are waiting on that, hopeful this fall, but it could be spring. I'm not sure. When
During
we'll
an
find out
election
those
year? Come on. How can it stall out, right?
Yeah, when we'll find out those appropriations. But if it moved forward as planned, we would find that out this fall. We would finalize our construction documents over the winter time, and we would go out for a bid probably early spring and start construction next summer.
Okay, so for right now, we're just mowing the yard.
Yes.
Okay, simple fact. If that doesn't come through, we're still building, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
it's just going to be more bonding, if you will. So,
Yes.
all right, it's interesting how this comes together. I asked you about the layout as far as the fire department because it seems like those guys and the police department are very active. As far as the police department, where are they exiting the building at then?
They will exit on Robinson.
Okay.
Yep.
And then City Hall itself, if I want to come in and apply for something,
That would go on Highway 14.
On
You
Highway 14.
enter and exit through Highway 14.
okay, so it's going to be like a circle drive there, or what's the plan?
So that there will be a bay, the bays where the fire department utilizes, and then we will have. So we have not, and this is ultimately where we're at in design. That could change once we get approvals from DOT because they have the say of where the approaches can go on Highway 14. So as of right now, our design shows that there will be an entrance to City Hall and then a separate bay for the fire and rescue where they go. And there's options that we're looking at in terms of, the traffic signals. I know a lot of the conversation has been around them entering and exiting out of Highway 14 and the traffic flow. There's options where several communities are going out on large roads, 3-4 lane roads that
Right.
are heavy in traffic. And so there's options that we are able to utilize that can stop the flow of traffic for them to get in and out. So we're looking at those. I'm not sure what that will look like yet, but there are options out there for this.
Emergency lights, just stop
Yes.
the traffic. I've seen it before up in
Yeah.
the bigger cities, so it tends to happen that way. Heather, we have ran out of time. Thank you so much for coming out. We will have you back on and keep updated on this public safety and also on infrastructure and anything else that I'm going to dig up on you because I see it on social media and people complain about it, but nobody ever wants to take a step to find out what's going on. I always encourage people to go to the meetings. I always encourage people to call whoever they need to call to, whether it be you, the fire chief, the police chief, and get the
Absolutely.
answers rather than just go up there and speculate.
Absolutely.
Hopefully this show helps get that done as well. So again, thank you so much for coming on, and we're going to wrap things up here, and we come back to next week as well. A couple things going on for next week. We're going to talk to the guys with our gun show that we're talking about for next week. We're going to come in and speak to James and speak to my man Boz about this gun show. One or both of them's coming on. I can't remember which one it is now, but that'll be next week as well. And eventually, we're going to also start talking about some things with the school going on. I've got to reach out to Cassie and find out when we can schedule her as well. As promised last week, we talked about our sponsors doing one of these little tumblers here. I gotta learn this camera thing here a little bit more. I got a face for radio, obviously it shows, but we're gonna give away one of these tumblers today. We reached in and pulled out Carolyn Bauer is our winner for today. All you have to do is simple. It's just share and like our post here of this particular show, this time with Heather Ussery. It'll be up on Facebook, and you like it, we'll put your name in a hat, and we'll come down and do it. You can only win every 60 days. So, again, Carolyn Bauer, if you want to run out to Design Metal Art out there behind Pizza Hut and claim your prize, you can have, again, the tumbler as is with the old Try Knoxville on it, or you can have your own design, but you have to pay for that one yourself. The tumbler is free, but the design is not. We want to thank everybody that helps out with this show. Again, Midwest Events Promotions also helping on board with Design Metal Art. And that's going to wrap it up this edition of Try Knoxville. And we'll see y'all next time.